I guess I should start this video by saying that if you're here just to be a retard in my comments and leave some stupid comment telling me that somehow I'm wrong about this game, or that this is a good decision actually and Santa Monica knows what they're doing, then don't even bother, because I'm not even going to give you the time of day. I'm not going to respond to your comment. I'm not going to do anything like that. You are going to be ignored and treated like the piece of trash on the ground that you are. You're not going to be able to gaslight me or convince me that this game is somehow good, because it's not. I have eyes. I know what I'm looking at. And so, if that's you, and if you clicked on this video expecting someone to just suck this game's dick and talk about how good it looks, I'm sure there are plenty of channels out there right now doing just that. There are probably people out there making little theory videos based on the trailer right now. So if you're just here to suck off Cory Balrog and the rest of Santa Monica Studios' dicks, then you've come to the wrong place. And this is your warning that you should leave. So now that we've hopefully filtered all the retards from this video, I mean, it's kind of impossible to do that, because even when I say shit like this, they still show up anyways. But I digress. At least I can say now that I tried. So, now we can get to what I actually wanted to talk about, which, if you clicked on this video, you already know. So, we just recently got the latest Gay station, State of Gay, and I watched it all the way through, and let me just say that I have been dreading this moment for a long time, because if you've been keeping up with anything God of War related recently, you know that it's been a rumor for quite some time that there was planned to be a spin-off of God of War based on Faye, Kratos' wife. And all the way up into the State of Play, or the State of Gay, these were nothing more than just that, rumors. And so I heard about this, but I didn't say anything about it for a long time. I remained relatively silent on this, because you know me, I always like to give Santa Monica the benefit of the doubt, even when they don't deserve it. So, I didn't say much about these supposed rumors, but I was just hoping, praying that they were false, because if these ended up being true, I knew that it was going to be a disaster. And, what do you know, at this recent State of Gay, all my worst fears were revealed. All of it ended up being true. And so, look, I knew from the start that this was going to be a bad idea if they decided to go this route of the Faye spin-off, because there's no way in any universe that this would actually end up being a good game. But nothing could have prepared me for the infinite levels of cringe that this trailer was going to give us. No matter how low my expectations were going in, somehow they were able to be exceeded with how shitty this trailer ended up being. So, I guess all I can really do now is just go back through this shitty trailer and just break it down, which, I almost don't need to do, because if you have eyes and you watch the trailer like I did, everything pretty much speaks for itself. If you're not a complete Sony fanboy who isn't just blinded by your loyalty to this fucking company, then it should be blatantly obvious, everything that I'm about to say. But whatever, I'm gonna do it anyways. So, we start off with the opening scene from the 2018 game. When Kratos and Atreus, they're burning Faye's body, and all the ashes go up into the sky. And as soon as I see the shot of the ashes floating up into the sky, I'm just like, well, fuck, this is it, it's over. Everything that people have been saying, all the rumors, they're all true. And from this moment, I knew that we were doomed. Because this whole concept of a spin-off based off Kratos' wife, like I said earlier, it's just an unsalvageable concept. There's no way you can make this work, because without Kratos as a protagonist, it's not God of War. You need Kratos to have God of War, because he is God of War. You can't have a God of War game with a different protagonist. Especially not a character as irrelevant as Faye. She had 5 minutes of screen time in Ragnarok, maybe total, and that's it. No one wanted this. No one cares about her. No one asked for this. There are no actual Faye fans who wanted to see more of her and to get to play as her. It's just Santa Monica not understanding their fans and not being able to read the room and just making something that no one wants except for them. So, Like I said, even though I knew from this moment it was going to be trash, this was just the beginning of the gauntlet of shit that we were about to go through in this trailer. So, picking up where we left off in the trailer, Faye's ashes float up into the sky, and she gets, reborn in this new, mysterious world, and we get our first look at the new protagonist. And all I can say is that this bitch is fucking hideous. She looks absolutely disgusting. I mean, I don't know if Sony knows this, but they don't have to render in perfect 4K detail every little skin pore and wrinkle on someone's face. You can have a little bit of stylization when you do this. Because when you do it this way, it just looks disgusting. It just looks uncanny and gross. So yeah, we get our first look at this hideous fucking bitch, and it's only a few seconds later that we get a close-up shot of her toes. Because Cory Balrog, of course, he's a perv. But he's not even good at doing that. Because if he was, he would actually give us an attractive main character. So then, she gets ambushed by this disgusting little furry creature, because of course, it wouldn't be a modern God of War game without the devs inserting in their unnecessary furry characters. And so she follows this little creature, and she gets attacked by like a flower monster or some gay shit like that. Who even cares? And this is where we get our first look at the actual gameplay of this game. And we do see gameplay a few times throughout this trailer. Most of what I want to say about the gameplay, though, I'm just going to say it right here. Because, honestly, there isn't that much to even say about it, because it looks pretty much identical to the Kratos gameplay that we saw in the previous two games, 2018 and Ragnarok. And so, it has the same over-the-shoulder camera, similar moves, and similar, finishers. Everything looks like it's clearly based on the combat of those two games. Just the one main difference that we did see in this trailer is that Faye has the ability to jump. And not only that, she has the ability to double jump, which Kratos famously was able to double jump in the old Greek games. But for whatever reason, in these new games, they took that ability away from him, and he no longer has the ability to jump. And so now, while Kratos is forced to be glued to the ground at all times, this disgusting bitch gets the double jump, while Kratos is forced to have nothing. I don't get it. I don't understand why. But this is Santa Monica we're talking about, and we can't expect them to make reasonable or logical decisions, because they're Santa Monica Studios. So, Faye gets captured by these weird soldier guys. I don't even really know how to describe them. And they lead her through their camp, and we get yet another shot of a furry. This is undoubtedly the work of Tony, or at least one of his many furry disciples who are still there working at Santa Monica Studios, because they just can't help themselves when it comes to inserting their own original furry characters into the games. And they're putting all these furries and other creatures into cages made out of bones, and so this is obviously supposed to establish these guys as the enemies, because they're doing a furry genocide or whatever. But honestly, I'm on these guys' sides. If they're capturing all the furries and all the cringe characters, then that's actually something I would support. So I actually want these guys to win, even though the game just started and I don't even know who they are yet. These guys that captured Faye, they're supposed to be Mongolian warriors, apparently, even though I'm not really seeing that, just based off the designs. The only thing that gave it away was just the subtitles that said that they were speaking in Mongolian. And they bring her to their Mongolian god or whatever. We also see there's an Egyptian goddess with him as well. And I just have to say that these character designs are absolutely hideous. Do you remember back in the Greek games, the designs of the Greek gods, how they actually somewhat resembled the culture that they were supposed to represent? Well, I'm not really getting any of that here with these designs. They all just look like generic, ugly, sci-fi, alien bullshit. Everything about this game and its visual design and art style is just so generic and so ugly, and it hurts to look at, and it all just blends together to form this visual diarrhea that's just so unpleasant to look at. And I hate it. I absolutely hate the way this game looks. Another thing is that several times throughout this trailer, characters reference like a mask or the mask or something about a mask. And I think obviously this is supposed to be calling back to the story of Ragnarok, where, if you remember, Odin was gathering pieces of a mask because it gave him like a view into a different realm, and that was part of the plot of that game, that was Odin's main goal. And I didn't even like the story of Ragnarok. I've been very critical of it, but knowing this, that this is, I think they're implying this is the realm that Odin was trying to get insight to, and that it's all leading into this. That just makes Ragnarok look even worse in retrospect, because what a disappointment that it was all leading just to this garbage. And so Faye is just talking back to these gods and being a bitch. And so the big red guy punches Faye right in the face, and we get a close-up shot of that. And that's honestly the only good scene in this entire trailer. But 10 out of 10 moment right there. I loved it. But unfortunately, this moment doesn't last long because, oh, if you thought this trailer was bad so far, just wait. Because at this point, I was already checked out. I already thought this game looked like complete shit. But I didn't know it was somehow going to get even worse. So they take Faye, they throw her in one of the bone cages that we've seen. They put the furries in there earlier. And Faye, she hears a voice next to her. And she looks over, and there's like something covered up by a blanket. And the blanket falls away, and it's revealed that it is a talking cube. No, I'm not making this shit up. If you've seen the trailer, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Faye is talking to a literal talking cube. Do you guys remember back in the old God of War games when these games used to take themselves seriously? You know, it was dark, it was violent, it was gory, it was a story about war and a man seeking revenge for his family that he was tricked into murdering. And there's blood and guts and now, here in this game, it's just, we've come so far, fallen so far from what these games used to be, that now we have Faye, who meets a talking cube, a goofy, funny talking cube, and they're gonna break out and go on wacky, goofy adventures together with the talking cube. And I guarantee you that if you were to actually play this game, this talking cube would get so old so fast. I already was sick of this motherfucker from the moment I saw him, and he got on my nerves every time he spoke throughout the entirety of this trailer. I cannot imagine playing through this whole game and having this goofy talking cube yapping in my ear the entire time. You know, in the Norse Kratos games, you had Atreus, who he could be a little annoying at times, but at least he was like a fully developed character who had a reason to be there, who had a connection to the protagonist. You know, he was literally the protagonist's son. He was part of the story. He had his character arc and he was written into the story. But here, for some reason, there's just a random talking cube who has no connection to Faye whatsoever, and he's just here, literally just so they could give you an annoying sidekick. Because they think that that's just part of what these games are now, I guess, is that you have to have an annoying sidekick character, even when it doesn't even make sense and doesn't fit into the game at all. Not every one of these games needs to have a companion character. If it's relevant to the story, like Atreus, then sure, but you don't need a goofy talking cube to follow you around throughout the entire story and go, whoa, wasn't that crazy? Wasn't that wacky? Can you believe that just happened? Whoa, Faye, look out, they're attacking you. Woo, that just happened. Woo. It's like this cube feels like it belongs more in something with the tone of Mickey Mouse Clubhouse than anything related to God of War that's ever existed before, because this isn't even God of War at all. There's nothing in this trailer that even resembles God of War. It's completely removed from what it used to be and what the series used to be about. It's just gone off the deep end. It's insane. But anyway, back to the actual trailer itself. So, it's explained that this realm that Faye went to is called the Afterlife of the Gods. And so this is where the gods, like regardless of what mythology or realm they were from before, when they die, they all end up going here. So that's the reason why we had Mongolian and Chinese and Egyptian and now Norse gods all together in the same place. Is because they all died and they came to this realm. And so I guess that also implies that this cube was a god from somewhere at some point, which just makes it even worse because They had so many options and designs that they could have gone with for a cool companion that was supposed to be like a god. And of all the things they could have went with, they went with a talking cube. And I'm just going to assume that it's because these devs, they have no creativity whatsoever, and this is legitimately the best thing they could come up with. And also, because they're so lazy, and because it's easier to animate just a cube than an actual fully developed character, and because these devs are lazy pieces of shit, they wanted to take the easy way out, so they just went with a cube. And not only is all of this completely cringe on its own, this even goes so far as to ruin moments from the previous games. Because if you remember that scene that they showed at the beginning of the trailer, this, in these games' canon, take place directly after that scene from God of War 2018, when Kratos and Atreus are having like a little funeral for Faye. And I do have some mixed feelings about that game. I'm not always a fan of the way they go about their storytelling, just because I feel like sometimes it can be too drawn on and overdramatic and too much like they're trying to be a movie. But at least I can give that scene credit. They committed to making it a fully serious scene. There were no jokes, no annoying sidekick characters. Just, they played straight the emotional scene of Kratos and Atreus having the funeral for Atreus' mom and Kratos' wife. But now, that moment is completely ruined, because now we know that right after that scene happens, Faye instantly just gets teleported up to the Reddit realm, where she meets a wacky talking cube so they can have fun and go on adventures together. And so what a way to undercut what was supposed to be an emotional scene. But anyways, Faye uses the power of friendship or whatever to break out of the cage, and she breaks out the magical talking cube as well. And so there's like this moment where she sees Kratos for just a second, and it amounts to pretty much nothing. It's just bait. They just threw that in there just so they could try to relate this to God of War somehow, I guess, because other than that, this really has nothing to do with God of War whatsoever. And so they escape from their cages, and Faye, you see, she's about to get attacked by one of the Mongolian soldiers that we saw captured her earlier. And then this is the worst moment in the entire trailer. I cringed out of my spine when I was watching this for the first time. This is the part where she gets saved by the talking cube. The talking cube comes out of one side of the screen and like knocks the soldier out of the way, and they play it up as it's supposed to be like this epic moment, like, whoa, she just got saved by the cube. Isn't that cool? Isn't that epic? Well, no, it's none of these things. It's just cringe and gay. This whole game is cringe and gay. So honestly, after this point, there's not even much more I really have to say about the actual trailer. We just get another fight scene, and they show Faye fighting the tutorial boss of the game, and it's the big fire god that they showed earlier. And I said I wasn't going to talk that much about the gameplay, because I kind of already said everything I wanted to say about it earlier, and honestly, like, who even cares? Because this game could have any gameplay pretty much. It could have the best gameplay in any game that's ever been created, and this game would still be shit, just because every other aspect of it is so unimaginably cringe and garbage. And so, I think it's safe to say at this point that God of War as a series is just completely dead. It's been completely humiliated and dragged through the dirt, and it's just a shell of its former self. It no longer even somewhat resembles what it started out as. It's just been completely bastardized and just turned into something else. And, I've had these fears all the way back since God of War Ragnarok. When I first played that game, I did not like the direction that this series was going in. I thought it was becoming way too goofy, way too lighthearted, way too kid-friendly, and it was just focusing so much on these cringy plots based around teenage drama and obnoxious characters and goofy Pixar animals made for kids doing silly things. And it was no longer actually took itself seriously and was about war, or he's supposed to be the god of war. Where's the war? Where's the violence? Where's the bloodshed? Where's the game that actually commits to taking itself seriously and telling a serious story and can go for more than 30 seconds without having to crack some lame, unfunny joke? So yeah, I did not like Ragnarok when it came out, and I was worried about the direction that the series was going in. But, That was just one bad game. Every game series can have one now and then. It's not the end of the world. It's no big deal. It's not like they couldn't have improved and gotten things better for the next game. But pretty much every criticism I had about Ragnarok is here, and not only is it here, it's taken to the extreme. If it was there in Ragnarok, at least a little bit, it's now here in full force. Just the obnoxious, unfunny side characters. The tone, which is more like Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or something like that. It's completely made for kids, more than something that actually takes itself seriously, like the old God of War games, how they used to be. And as much as I disliked Ragnarok back when I first played it, looking back after seeing this, it honestly makes Ragnarok look not too bad. Because at least, for all the shit that was in Ragnarok, it was still a pretty decent game beneath the surface. We actually had Kratos as the main character. The combat for Kratos was great. There were cool boss fights. There were some pretty great moments, even though, obviously, a lot of the story I didn't like. There were still some good moments in the story, like the fight with Thor at the beginning, for example. And more great moments like that later on in the game. And I honestly did not think that God of War could ever sink any lower than Ironwood in God of War Ragnarok. When I played that for the first time, I thought that this was the lowest that God of War could ever sink. You literally ride on a moose, you ride on a giraffe for 2 hours, and somehow it is still less embarrassing and less of a humiliation of the series than this is. I don't know how Santa Monica was able to outdo themselves, but they did. That seems like the only thing Santa Monica is even good at doing these days, is somehow just being able to keep outdoing their own shittiness. They've forgotten how to do everything else good. That is the only thing they know how to do now. And so it's at this point, I think it's safe to say, God of War is dead. It's over. The series that was once so great and had so many great games, nothing of that old version of God of War remains at all. It's completely dead. And so I'm done with God of War. I'm never playing anything new related to God of War that ever gets released ever again. Definitely not this game or anything that comes out after this. I'm done. I'm sticking to the original games because we still have those, and those games are still good, and that's it. But God of War is dead to me. I don't care what comes out. I'm not playing it. It is going to be shit. It does not matter what it is. And I'm sure you're probably saying, like, oh, well, what about those remakes that they announced recently? What about those when they come out? The remakes of the original trilogy. And to that, I say, Santa Monica can take the remakes and they can shove it up their ass. Because those original games that they're based on are masterpieces. And knowing how Santa Monica is today, it's obvious that they're clearly just going to fuck up those games. Because they don't understand anything about what made those games actually good. Because if they did, clearly they wouldn't be making shit like this. And so I'm done with the remakes. I'm done with God of War. Anything God of War that comes out, I don't care. It's at this point where I'm no longer a fan of God of War. I'm a hater. I used to be a fan. I used to want the series to improve. Back in the Ragnarok days, I wanted the series to get better from here and to learn from their mistakes that they made. But now, I can see that that's no longer possible because they've just doubled down. And it's clear that they will never learn from their mistakes. So at this point, all I want is for God of War to fail. I want nothing more than for Santa Monica Studios to crash and burn. Usually when I make these kind of videos, I say something like, oh, I don't want them to fail. I want it to be good. I'm just not that hopeful. And I always try to remain at least somewhat optimistic. But in this case, after seeing this trailer, I can't even do that because there is a 0% chance that this game is going to be good. No chance at all. And so, I am not going to remain hopeful about this. I'm going to say outright, I want it to fail. And I'm saying it right now because that is exactly what Santa Monica deserves. They deserve for their slop to fail. But sadly, even that is asking for too much. That is one wish of mine that will never be fulfilled. Because no matter how bad their games are, no matter how much they continue to turn God of War into slop, these Sony fanboys are going to continue to buy it and play it no matter what. And not only that, they're going to defend it. They're going to play these games when it comes out, and they're going to say that it's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, game of the year, and that it has absolutely no flaws, because they're so blinded by loyalty to Sony that they have no standards of their own. To them, there's no difference between this game and the old God of War games, just because this has the name God of War attached to it. Even though it's God of War in name only, they're still going to eat it right up. And Sony is going to make a more $1 billion off of them. And the next God of War games are going to be more of the same shit, exactly like this. And honestly, that's what I want to happen, because this is exactly what these Sony fanboys deserve. They get the games that are made perfectly for what they want and deserve. Back when Ragnarok came out, the Sony fanboys were saying the exact same thing that they're going to say for this game. That the game is 10 out of 10, it's a masterpiece, it's perfect, it's game of the year, it has no flaws. And you're not allowed to be critical of the game, or else they'll come after you and say that you actually are the one who's wrong, and you just don't understand the game's genius because you played the game wrong or something. If these people weren't complete drones, and they actually called out Santa Monica back when Ragnarok was released about all the problems that were in the game, then Santa Monica would be forced to course correct so that they didn't lose their fans, and adapt and make changes and actually go back to making good games. Because the fans, the fanboys I guess, because they're not true fans, they're fanboys, and there is a difference, they get it right up and just buy whatever slop they make, there's no reason for them to change, because their audience is going to stay the same because they don't care. And so they're going to stay the same because they don't care either. They have no standards. If the fans don't have any standards when it comes to consuming the product, why should they have any standards when it comes to making the product? So they're perfect for each other. Sony and their fanboys are perfect for each other because they're trapped in an endless symbiotic cycle where it's just an endless cycle of slop feeding into each other indefinitely. And that is why these games are never going to change and nothing is ever going to improve as long as these fanboys continue to defend these games. So at this point, after this, if I ever talk about anything new related to God of War, it'll only be to A-log it and to make fun of it and to hate on it, because that is all the value that the series even really provides at this point. It's fallen off so far from being a series that actually consistently was able to make great games that now it's just a locale of a series that the only value it provides is for videos like this, making fun of it. I think in these upcoming days, we're about to see who the real fans are and who the fanboys are, because anybody defending this game is one of two things. One, they're either a fanboy who's so blinded by their loyalty to Santa Monica that they can't see this game for what it really is, that it's pure slop, or either that, or it's a grifter who's just trying to make money and get views and get likes off of covering God of War, so they have to pretend that this game is good, so they can talk about it in a positive light and get views from the aforementioned fanboys. And so, I think, well, this game, Ragnarok somewhat did this, but this game, even more than that, will expose who the true fans are and who the fake ones. And anyone defending this game in any way is not a true fan of God of War. Because if they were, and if they actually played any of those old games and liked them, then they would see how shitty this game looks in comparison. Because there's no way anyone who actually was a fan of those games could think that this game looked good in any way. Because it doesn't. And so, for that reason, I say, fuck Sony, fuck Santa Monica, fuck Cory Balrog, and fuck this game. It's going to be garbage. And that's the end of the story. And so, that's pretty much all I have to say about that. So, if you made it this far in the video, thank you for listening to my ramblings. I know it might seem like I'm seething right now, but that's because I am! And that's, I think it's justified, because this is something worth getting angry at. Because it's just sad to see how far this once great series has fallen. But before I start going on a whole nother tangent again, I think I better just end the video. So once again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.